very successful alum, Mr. Gautama Bharadwaj, who is in UC Davis right now pursuing his electrical and computer science masters. So welcome you to the session, and we are very glad that we have you at this session. So thank you, and over to you.
Thank you.
And he has come for holidays, and he's decided to spend some time in the campus. That is something great which I wouldn't have done. So thanks again.
So today I'm going to be talking about just giving an overview of the experiences that I've had, and I'm going to be talking about how to decide on the university that you want to go to, what are the factors, and then I want this more to be like a question and answer, and especially for people that are watching on video. Even if you have questions, not for yourself, but if you just want to ask questions, please feel free to. So initially, I'm going to talk about my journey, and the reason for me doing this is because I think me talking about my journey is going to answer some questions maybe that you guys might have had, and I feel like it's going to give an overview of what the process is going to be like. So I started my journey in 2019 with the intention of applying to universities for 2020 fall. So that's about August, September in 2020. And I graduated in 2020 from Electrical and Electronics Engineering here in GMSIT. And when I applied in 2019, my profile was approximately, my GPA was around 8.2, GRE was around 324, TOEFL was 118, and I had a few internships under my belt. And I applied to these universities. So these universities, I'll share this PPT also later, you can't see right now. But I applied to really top universities, keeping in mind that my profile was good enough to be accepted into this. And I was wrong about that, because when I went back and looked at my profile and to analyze what went wrong and why I got rejects from all these universities when I applied, was that my conclusion was my GPA was not high enough to get into these top universities. And I knew this when I initially applied to these universities, but I just thought that the rest of the applications were, the other parts of my application was good enough to compensate for my GPA being 8.2. But these are universities that require your GPA to be 9 or 9 plus. And this data is based on apps like Yocket, where they put out average GPA for admins.
How did your profile look like during the application process? Explain about your profile.
So my profile, I had a GPA of 8.2. My GRE was 324 out of 340. And that breakdown was, I think, 165 quantitative, 159 verbal. TOEFL was 118 out of 120. My speaking was 29. Apart from that, I had a research paper published in a topic that was not very relevant to
the current trend.
No, not relevant to the degree I was applying. So I was applying for electrical and computer engineering. While parts of the research was related to digital signal processing, the major projects that I did were, I would say, maybe kind of irrelevant. It was an interdisciplinary project. But apart from that, I think, at that point I had done 4 internships. But yeah, that was my overall
internship
profile.
in the similar sector, that is EEE or something related?
Yeah, it's the same. So I did 2 internships in IISc. Both were it was in the mechanical department, but like I said, one project was related to digital signal processing, which was relevant. And another internship was an industry internship. That was relevant, although that was just for a month. So yeah, that was the overall profile. So my takeaway from my initial application cycle when I got rejected by all these universities were my GPA was not good enough, and I need to be more realistic about the kind of universities that I applied to. So that's what I did during the second application cycle. So I worked for a year after my graduation. I worked here in Bangalore. And while I was working, I applied for the next year. So I applied for fall 21 intake. And I applied to these universities. And the universities that are marked by red are the universities I got rejected from. And the ones marked in green are the ones that I got an admit from. And I've ranked this in terms of the universities that I really wanted to go to at the top versus the universities that I wasn't that keen on at the bottom. But I still applied to, because this time around I wanted to be a little more safe, and I applied to universities that I knew I would get it, but I wouldn't have been too happy if I had to go to this.
So how did you choose these universities? Based on what?
I'm gonna talk about that. I have like a detailed slide on how to make the decision. So based on this, my decision, because UC Davis was the second most in my list, I decided to pursue my master's in electrical and computer engineering, and that's what I'm doing now. So in fall, I went to UC Davis. This was my first quarter. So University of California, Davis has a quarter system, not a semester system. Quarter system means there are 4 quarters in a year. January to March is called the winter quarter. March to June is called the spring quarter. June to August, September is called summer. And September to December is called fall. So I went there in September, which is when the course started. So my first quarter in UC Davis was, this is what I did. So majority of my time went towards the courses that I was doing. The second thing was, so by this point, when I got an intake admit from UC Davis, I was reached out to by a professor from my university. I think he had a look at my SOP and my application, and he said, I have a project that's really interesting, and I think it would suit your profile. So I had a discussion with him before I went there, and then I'm still continuing to work with him. So when I went in fall quarter, I started my research with him, although it was unpaid at that time, because I'd just come in. So he didn't know how I worked or anything, so he wasn't paying me. So in my first quarter, apart from courses, I also applied for on-campus jobs, because you want to be able to earn or waive your fees off if you can. And I got a job to work as a research assistant, which was an hourly pay thing. It did not waive my tuition fees off, but it was like, it paid hourly, and I worked 20 hours a week in my first quarter. But apart from that, other major chunk of my time went to applying for internships. And I guess maybe it's not relevant to you guys, maybe people that are watching, if you want to apply for internships, you have to start as soon as you go there. So and I want you guys to be aware of how it is when you land there, because not to deter you from applying, but for you to be aware of what you have to do. There's going to be a bunch of things that you're going to have to do. Apart from settling into a new place, a new environment, you have to immediately start applying to on-campus jobs, you have to start applying for internships, you have to work on your courses, because grades are also important, and you getting your internships is dependent on that course, and you have to go on there to study. And at the same time, you also, if you want to do research, you also have to be able to get in touch with the professor, start working on a research project. So your initial, I would say 6 months or maybe a year is going to be, you have to be able to manage your time really efficiently. So it's really important.
By meaning internship, is it something what you take immediately as soon as you join, or do you mean the 4th quarter internship?
Yeah, so I mean for internships in the next summer. So in my case, for internship in summer 2022, the applications for those internships start in August and September. Big companies usually hire really early.
So, but you cannot intern while you are studying on campus. You can always apply for on-campus jobs, or
That's not
a day
really
shift
true,
or an
actually.
hour shift. But do you think you can still do
Yeah.
an internship along with
Yeah.
being in the campus immediately when you
Not immediately.
Yeah.
So on,
that's the point everyone should remember.
yeah, exactly. And that's what I was telling earlier. So there are 2 intakes. One is fall and one is spring intake. And typically on F1 visa, I don't know the exact duration, but there are some certain number of months where you cannot do an internship. Internship meaning on your visa there is something called SCPT, which stands for Curricular Practical Training, which is what allows you to do an internship in the US. So for you to activate CPT on your visa, you need to stay there for a few months.
That is 9 months at least.
Yeah, exactly, 9 months. So if you go in spring, so if you go in January and the internships start in June, you will not be allowed to do an internship, which is why people prefer to go in fall. Because if you go in fall, if you go in August or September, by the time June comes, you would have finished that quota of 9 months, and you would be available to do an internship.
That's when you're eligible to do an internship.
Exactly.
Not immediately.
Yeah. And doing an internship is extremely important, I would say. So that's typically why people choose fall. And if you guys had a choice and you didn't know what to go for, I would say choose fall, unless you have a other good reason why you would not be going for. So internship applications for summer 2022.
And when are you eligible to apply for research internship or research assistantship?
So research assistantship, it was like there's a portal that UC Davis has where you can called Handshake portal, where they list out all these on-campus jobs that are there, and you can apply to them.
Each and every university would have a different portal to apply for the on-campus jobs,
Exactly,
or
yeah.
research assistantship or TA-ship.
Yeah. So typically many people, even like jobs in restaurants, for example, for you to work as a waiter or a server, or for you to do any like clerical jobs on campus, typically all those jobs are posted on these portals. But that doesn't mean that's the only place where jobs are posted. I mean, it depends on the department that you're in and department you're applying to. Some departments don't put TA-ships on this portal. Instead, you just have to send them an email and they'll let you know. Or some departments have a Google form that you have to fill out, and based on that, they give you a job. So you need to be aware of all of these different things when you do. But you can do that immediately. So you can work on campus immediately as soon as you go there. So that was my first quarter. That was September to December. And my second quarter was from June to March. So in my second quarter, I got a teaching assistantship position. And at UC Davis, teaching assistantship waives off your tuition fees. Not everything. So tuition fees is broken down into your actual tuition fees and something called as a non-residential tuition. Non-residential tuition is what you have to pay if you're not a resident of the state that you're in. And for us international students, we have to pay that fees. So teaching assistantship waived off the tuition fee part of it, but I still had to pay non-residential tuition for the quarter. And it also paid me stipend every month, which was more than sufficient for me to not only take care of my rent and other expenses, but also I was able to save some money and use that money to cover that non-residential tuition that I was not able to pay. So I think overall, I might have gone like minus $500 to $1,000, but it was not too much expenditure. So what I did in my second quarter was, again, courses. I worked as a teaching assistant, which involved like a lot of grading for undergrad students, grading their assignments and so on and so forth. I continued to do apply for internships because I didn't get it here in fall. But in winter quarter, I attended the career fair that UC Davis offered, and I happened to meet the manager at Intel, my manager at Intel, and we hit it off really well. And then there was an interview scheduled sometime later, and then I got the internship during my winter quarter. This is the internship for summer. So the third quarter was spring, which is March to June, and at that point since I already had got an internship, I stopped applying, so my time went more towards the research that I was doing. This is the research with the professor that got in touch with me earlier, and apart from working as a teaching assistant and the courses. So the teaching assistantship that I got for winter, the same course was there in spring, and I just continued to work there.
How many courses did you take in Q1?
So Q1 I did, I think, 2 graduate level courses. Apart from, there were some courses that I had to do, like induction courses, seminar courses, which are all 1-unit courses. Not a lot of time given, but 2 graduate level courses. This was 2 graduate level courses plus 1 undergrad course, which is called Launching a Company. I took it because it was 3 units and I needed 3 units. It was a fun course. And then third quarter was also 2 graduate level courses. So typically you can do 3 courses, but it's going to be super hectic. And because I had to apply for internships, do my research and things like that, I chose to just do 2 courses and take it a little easier and give time to other things as well.
So do you have any prerequisite courses before you got admitted to the department? Because you are from EEE and you were taking ECE, so that is electrical and computer science engineering. So just wanted to know if you were supposed to take up some prerequisite courses like data structures.
No, so the department is actually electrical and computer engineering. Computer engineering is another word for electronics. I don't know why they call it computer engineering, but that's what they call it. So there was no prerequisites from the department point of view. But typically based on what course you take, there are going to be some prerequisites. because these master's courses, graduate courses, and again, all of this is purely from a UC Davis and my department perspective. Yeah. This is not a general thing across all universities or even other departments with UC. This is very specific to my department at UC Davis. So the courses, typically ECE is quite broad. So they have everything from like computer architecture to parallel processing to like optics, analog devices, analog electronics, digital electronics. So it's quite broad, and you can pick and choose any of these courses to do. So you have that freedom to do. So my focus was more towards computer engineering and information systems, which is like digital signal processing, digital image processing, and all of those courses, they list the prerequisites that you need to have, but they don't check.
Oh.
But if you take up courses that require that prerequisites, you're gonna have to do a little bit of catching up, because whenever they teach, they assume that you know all of this. So if you don't know, you kind of have to do a little extra to kind of catch up. And there have been times where I've taken a couple of courses that I dropped later on because it was just too much for me.
There was a student named Shashank who graduated from telecommunication department from our college. He joined UT Dallas for computer science.
I know.
Yeah. So he had to take up prerequisite courses like data structures and I guess DMS, one more course. So just to be in touch with the course or the curriculum, what they are offering at that university. So that is again depends on university to university. So
and department from department.
Yeah, correct.
So the next quarter was summer, and that was my 3-month internship at Intel. Nothing else apart from internship.
So how was it? How was the internship? How rigorous was it?
It was not very rigorous. It was a lot of learning, definitely a lot of learning curve, because the team that I worked on worked with both hardware and software, and from an intern point of view, to work to catch up to speed with what the technology that they are using, there's a lot of ramping up to do, which means there's a lot of learning to do. And I think overall I had a really good experience from a technical standpoint, and professionally also I made really good relationships there, increased my network there, which was super important. And I guess that's kind of the reason why it kind of got converted.
What kind of technology or?
So so Intel major product is CPUs. So it's mostly going to be anything related to a CPU.
Is it a research oriented?
No, it's more customer client oriented, client driven. So Intel has certain targets that they set out for each generation, and they usually typically work towards making sure that all those specifications are met. So it's more client specific.
How was the interview with the Intel to get through this?
So like I said, I got in touch with my manager at a career fair. We hit it off well, and then he got somebody from his team to call me, and it was actually impromptu. I just got a call out of nowhere, and we had a round of introductions, and then they were like, "Oh, do you have time for a technical?" Right now. But yeah, I mean, it was fine. It was more questions were more like C programming, Python programming, serial communication, parallel processing. Quite broad, but it went fine. I think typically in interviews, they assess you for you how teachable you are, and if you are able to pick up things.
You made it sound very easy, but I'm sure it will be a little extreme at the end.
Yeah, I feel like
I'm sure it will be extreme.
Yeah. So after that, this was the final quarter before I came here. So in this quarter, I got a job as a graduate student researcher. The same professor that I was working at, he provided that opportunity to me. So graduate student researcher is the entire fees is waived off, including non-residential, plus there's some stipend. So I can focus fully on my research and not worry about anything else. So this quarter it was just two things, just my research and the courses that I was doing.
So did they waive for tuition that quarter?
Yeah. And in
only the living was taken care of?
Yeah, exactly. And
do you have to recommend for it, the professor?
So typically, I mean, this again, the decision for getting a GSR, that's what it's short for, is really dependent on the professor. So some GSRs are given through the portal that I spoke about, where job opportunities are posted. In my case, my professor, when I interacted with him at this point, I had asked him at that point itself, I was like, I want to work on this research, can you fund me? And he had told me that, let's see for a year. And it makes sense, they want to be able to evaluate you and see how you work and what kind of output you can give, because if he's paying you, there will be some kind of return that would be expected. Typically in your first year, there are so many things that you have to do, you don't have too much time to devote to your research, so there's not going to be a lot of output from you. So, I mean, at the end of 1 year, he agreed to give, so I'm guessing.
Do they recommend?
No,
It comes with
it comes from him.
Oh, sure.
So the funding comes from a project that he's the principal investigator of. So he makes that decision of if he wants to hire me.
What's the same in India as well?
Yeah. So yeah, so this is my journey, and after my quarter, I came here to give this talk. So what I want to talk about is, I want to talk about the factors that I looked at, and I think these are the factors that should be important when you guys are making a decision on what universities to go for. So one of the factors, and this I would say from experience now, I would say this is the biggest factor. Funding opportunities in this university that you are a part of is huge, because like we were having a discussion when the video was off about people graduating early in a year. And typically when you're paying a lot of money to do your masters, you want to get that degree quick and get into the industry quick. But what that also means is you don't have that flexibility of enjoying that master's or enjoying your research, because research takes time. And if you really want to do that and have that experience or have a couple of papers published maybe, you need to be able to dedicate time. But if you are spending a lot of money, you typically wouldn't want to just do research. So, which is why I think funding opportunities are extremely important. And by funding opportunities, I'm talking about teaching assistantships and graduate student researcher or research assistants. It's called differently in different universities. I feel like those are really important because it waives a part of your fees off, and sometimes it waives your entire fees off. And I feel like that gives you that flexibility of saying, okay, I'm not spending money, so now I can choose to do whatever I want to do. And from my experience, I've analyzed that private universities are usually not going to fund you, but public universities, some of them are going to fund you, but not all of them are going to fund you. And this is just purely my observation. Because in private universities, you are considered as a source of revenue. And while you are still considered as a source of revenue, even in a public universities, they usually take your money and give it to PhD students. That's typically how it works. So if you're in a public universities, depending on the university that you're in, it's going to have certain grants that are meant for research or teaching assistantships, for example, which they give. And typically I have not seen a lot in private university. Again, this is not a general statement. There probably is a private university that gives out teaching assistantships or research assistantships. This is purely from what I have seen and from the friend circle that I have in the US, and based on their experiences, I'm making the statement. So in public universities, my observation is typically if the undergrad population is a lot in a university, it means that there is a need for more teaching assistants. Because if typically in a class, if there are like 100, 200 students, professors don't usually sit and grade every single assignment. So if there are so many students, they hire a master student as a teaching assistant to do that work for them. So general rule of thumb is, if you want funding, public university that has a lot of undergrad population is generally where you have the most opportunity. So UC Davis happens to be one of those universities where undergrad populations is a lot. Ohio State University is one of them. All of University of California have a massive student undergrad population. Amherst University of Massachusetts is also one university that has a lot of undergrad population. So this should be one of the factors for selecting your university. The second thing is obviously tuition fees and your cost of living, and where you are. California is expensive, New York is expensive. All these are like general rule of thumbs I feel like you should keep in your mind. All of this you have to plan, right? Like you need to have like, yeah.
Did you apply for scholarship?
So for UC Davis and other applications, so for some of the universities, I was automatically enrolled in a scholarship application with my application. So they typically, based on if they get, there's some certain deadlines. So if you apply within that deadline, you will be enrolled for a scholarship. But from my experience, there are not a lot of scholarships in the US that would give you that scholarship if you are an international student. Most of these scholarships and grants are, one of the requirements is you have to be a US citizen. And I didn't go out of my way to check if there were scholarships that I could be eligible for. So apart from whatever I was automatically enrolled in through my application, I did not apply to it.
The ones which I keep rolling out almost twice or thrice every week, there are scholarship opportunities for the Indian students or the non-American or non-Canadian students.
Okay.
So students tried applying to it, but there was no positive response.
Okay.
I guess there are a lot of people who are applying for such scholarship, and it's high in demand and very low in supply. So
Yeah, I guess that's it. If you guys want to know about scholarships, I guess it would be a good idea to come here to higher education cell and have a chat about it. They would know. So yeah. So second factor is cost. You don't want to spend too much. The third was research interest match. And I had particular research interests I had in mind, and whenever I looked at these universities' websites, I always went to the professors of the research that they were doing to see if there were any projects that were of interest to me. And in some universities, some universities were really good at things that I were not interested in. So, which was one of the reasons why I didn't apply to them. But this also I thought would be one good selection factor to have. The fourth thing is job opportunities. You want to be in a university that has that alumni network that you can tap into. Typically, people from that university getting good jobs in companies, and you will get a general idea if you talk to people from that university where the employers come from. If there are any employers that are typically attached to the university that they get talent pool from. So these are the kinds of information that you need to be aware of, and you will be aware of it if you talk to people from these universities.
to add on to that, there's a huge alumni community at Northeastern University. I guess everyone should know about it. This is a huge community. You are aware of it, aren't you?
I just know of one.
So there are a lot of people at the NEU, and they help each
PMSH.
other. Yeah, a lot. Because we look at the application process, and at least 20 of them, 20 to 25 of them apply every year.
Okay.
That's the count I get, and other than that, there would be many more
Okay.
people who are applying to NE especially.
And then-
Yeah, when you talk about professors and
Yeah.
PhD,
Yes.
can you explain that part?
So, by professors, I meant what kind of research are these professors doing? Typically, professors, they have that, they know what they do. They have that kind of vertical already fixed, and you can find all of this out from the websites that they would have. So, I meant by this looking at the professors and seeing if there were any professors that you would like to work with, or if you're interested in certain topic and the professor is doing something on that topic, that could be a potential research interest match. That's what I meant here. And by PhD, I put a question mark here because if you're planning to do a PhD, then university matters a lot. If you're just doing masters, university is not super important. I would say if you're just doing masters, things like funding opportunities and costs and job opportunities would matter more than this. But if you're doing PhD, you want to be in a reputed university that publishes really good papers, that does really good research, and that's why I put a question mark here. If you're doing PhD, this is super important. If you're not, it's still important, depends on you. If you want to do research, it's important, if not, it's
Because they have enough funds, the bigger university.
yeah, it's not also about funds, it's also more about the value of your PhD. Like when you graduate from a PhD, you want to be recognized, typically. So that's one of the reasons. And finally, this is just personally, I need to be self-satisfied with the university. Some weird things in my head.
No, that matters too.
Yeah.
Just like the first list mattered to you.
Yeah, exactly. So typically, this is the timeline. So this is the application phase, and that is what happens after you get an admit. So you start off by making shortlisting universities, and for me personally, I higher education cell had a ranking of subscription of US News, and
We still have.
Okay, so
yeah, they can come and utilize the
Yeah.
website.
so that listed ranks of all these universities for different courses. So that was my starting point. I took a screenshot of all of those universities, and apart from that, I talked to people, connected with people on LinkedIn to find out more about their university, and based on all the research that I did online by visiting their websites and going through all those decision factors, I created a list of universities. Once that is done, you have your GRE and TOEFL exam to complete, which is GRE. I don't think is now required for many universities. Some universities still do require it. I kind of hope they really remove it. It's really stupid. I don't know why it's there, and it's a lot of money. So these two are requirements, and then once that is done, you have to work on your statement of purpose and get your letters of recommendation from professors. Typically for masters in science, they prefer academic LORs over professional LORs. Although having one professional LOR wouldn't hurt, but
What matters is the
Academic
LORs
LOR.
from the academy or institution.
Yeah.
Don't you think it's a lot of work? So you can cut short all of this and outsource your job to someone who is an expert, which is a service agent. What do you have? I mean, what's your take on that?
I mean, my personal opinion is I hate that.
Do your job is
Do your research, because I've had people, my friends that have gone to these services and they get admission to universities, but they are not reaching their potential. Like if you go through a service, they write your SOP for you, they write your LORs for you. It's not you writing it, so you're going to get a very mediocre university. You will not be able to dream high. I feel like the best application you can put forward is the one that you have written, like your statement of purpose. Why do you want to go to masters? Why do you answer is going to be I want to earn more. Why do you want to earn more? Is it just about money? Then it's going to be like I want to solve problems. Why do you want to solve problems? It's going to be I want to help people. So if you keep asking that question to yourself, you're going to come up across this thing about yourself.
Self-evaluation. When you start the process, it's like a year before you start the process, and you know where the lacuna is.
Exactly.
And you start working on yourself
Exactly.
to reach the potential or to reach the expectation of the university. And when you do everything by yourself, you're ready to do your masters, because nobody is coming for you and doing your masters or helping you for that.
Exactly.
So when you start preparing yourself, when you do this hardship here, when you start this hardship here, I guess it would be more, you will turn up into a better knowledge person when you go there and start doing everything. So we highly recommend the student themselves to do the complete application, and HAC is here to support you. And then there is a very huge alumni community which we are in touch with, and also embassies we are in touch with. So I feel with all this good information, you are ready to do all by yourself, and you have enough potential to do your application process all by yourself rather than outsourcing it to someone.
Yeah. I typically tell people that come to me and ask me about like SOP or how should I feel like writing your SOP is a very good exercise to do, even if you're not writing an essay.
Yeah.
Because statement of purpose is essentially like, what is your purpose? What do you want to do in this world, right? What is literally what it is? It's like, what's your purpose? So I feel like if you really start questioning things, why do you want to work in the industry? What do you really want to do? Obviously, money is going to always be there, but is it just money? So those are the kinds of questions that you guys want to keep asking. Because if it's just about money, like, do you really want to go abroad and go through all of this stress to just be able to earn more money, or is there something else? So these are the kind of, you ask why repeatedly over and over. I feel like it's a really good exercise to understand yourself apart from writing the essay.
And I've met a couple of bright students in our campus who are 9 pointers and above, and still they think that all this process bothers them or take away a lot of time from their regular routine, where they have to invest their time on projects and research, and why waste time on this? Let me outsource it. Let me pay someone 50,000 rupees and let them do all of this for me. So, and they have come back with a very, I mean to say a negative feedback.
Yeah, so the thing with that also is, if you're already kind of saying it's too much work for me to apply, this is gonna be like 5 times worse your first year when you go to do masters. So if you already want to have it easy, maybe it's not for you. That's what I would say.
Maybe MS is not for you.
Yeah.
That's what
because it's not going to be easy. And this is not a deterrent. This is the reality of it. It's like pressure makes diamonds. It's literally that. 1 year you go through so much stress, but you gain so much from that experience. And you should be ready to go through that kind of drilling process of stress. So, that's what I Yeah. So once you put your application forward, it's up to the university to decide. Again, it's a black box. Some people have got into universities that the average profile was probably much higher than theirs. Some people have been rejected by universities where they should have gotten admit. So we never know what happens during the admit process. But after the admit, supposing you have got admits from multiple universities, now you need to make a decision of where you want to go, and that's when the decision factors that I mentioned in the previous slide really come into play. So I always say I really like to make quantitative decisions. I don't like to take qualitative decisions. So any decision that you make about your university, back it by data and back it by numbers. And I have a snippet in the next slide. I can just show them. This is a screenshot of the decisions that I took. So what I did was I listed off all these universities that I was kind of considering, and I created a scale out of 10. And I had created these columns that were important for me. So these are all the decision factors. Self-satisfaction was one of them. Perception was what the society thinks, and I don't know why it's there, but it's there. And maybe it was important at that time for me. The other column was research interest match. Tuition and cost is obviously important, but I didn't put that in terms of, on a scale of 10, I just kept that to look at it for reference. And job opportunities are also another scale. So what I did to get these numbers were, from each of these universities, I contacted a minimum of 5 people through LinkedIn, people that were already studying in my course. And I had a questionnaire that I had prepared, which answered all these questions that I wanted to know. So I asked these 5 people these questions, and based on their answers, I converted those answers into a scale of 10. And I was able to put this table out, which really helped me make a decision. And my best match was UC Irvine, but unfortunately I couldn't get it. But the second was UC Davis, because I essentially added all this up together to get that total number.
33.
And compared with a reference of like tuition cost, comparing it with the other universities, it made sense. So I'd say quantify your decisions. It's going to help you. I mean, not just for like universities. I feel like in general, you're not going to have regrets if you quantify your decision. If you make a qualitative decision, I feel like later on you're going to be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done this. Like suppose UC Davis didn't go well for me, right? But I can always say at that point when I made the decision, I made the best decision I possibly could. And things not going well, I can't really do anything. You can only make decisions at the moment, right? And so
you can convince yourself with the numbers.
Exactly. So quantify any decision you take in life. Quantify it. Like sort of like an engineer.
So I wanted to know what kinds of questions you asked those 5 students at that university. Don't you think it's a very small sample of the students to
So
ask?
the thing is, to get 5 replies from people, you'll have to contact like 20 people. 20 people from, say, if you want to talk to people from 5 universities, that's 100 people that you have to get.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
So higher the better, more sample size the better. But I personally went with 5. But if you have the time and bandwidth,
So you highly recommend this exercise to all the students to get in touch with?
I would, because it helped me make a decision.
Yeah.
Because there were universities similar universities, like I said, like University of Massachusetts, which also offered funding, also had funding opportunities. And I spoke to a couple of people where they also got jobs. But if you make this quantitative decision, I feel like you would have considered all your options instead of just saying, oh, I just want to be in California because California is like the vibe,
Yeah.
You make a more career oriented, and if location is really important, it was for me. I didn't even apply to some university like University of Minnesota. I was like, I can't handle that cold, so I didn't even apply. But if that is of importance to you, create another column and then put a scale of 10. If whether it's Ohio, it snows, so you put 2 out of 10. And then in California, if you like it, you put 10 out of 10. So you can like make that also quantified.
Criteria is better it is.
Yeah, whatever is important to you. And these are just what decision matters are important to me. So you can change it or add more or remove something.
What kinds of questions did you ask those?
So I have a I have a detailed Excel sheet. I don't want to share it because it's like people's names that I contacted.
Not the names, just the criteria or the questions.
Funding was one. I asked them about what kind of funding opportunities there are. And why I would say talk to more people is because some people are going to have funding. If you talk to one person and they have a funding opportunity, and then if you talk to like another 9 people, if none of them have a funding opportunity, then your data is not going to be accurate. So more sample size the better. So ask them about funding. I asked them about the living costs, where they were staying, how much rent they were paying. I asked them about their course duration, how long they typically did their course for, when did they graduate and things like that. If they got internship, job opportunities, what was the class size, what were the courses that they took up, what were the courses that they would recommend. This was more for like research interest and making sure that I was doing the right thing. And I asked them about faculty that they liked or the professors that they were working with, so I could look up more about it. So I have like this Excel sheet where I created all these columns, and then for every person I filled it out. So that way I had like access to it.
Thanks, that's helpful actually. I hope everyone made note of it, and you can add more questions to it.
Yeah.
But these are something basic which everyone should not miss out on.
Yeah. These are like all simple things to just structure your application. You don't have to do it. If you do it, it's gonna help.
You are well aware when you do it.
Exactly, yeah.
One more question.
Yeah.
What was your GPA for the second time when you applied? What was your GPA?
It went from 8.2 to 8.22. So not really. My final semester was, I just passed one course. I don't know how that happened. So it didn't really improve. Typically, final semester it kind of improves, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But basically, people tell that UCs you need 9 plus.
Depends on what you see. Like UC Berkeley, UCLA, yeah. UC Irvine, yes.
USC.
USC is a private that also expects. I
Nine.
also got rejected by USC. So USC also expects 9.
9.
9, I would say. Yeah. So University of California, not all of them require. It depends on which one.
So 8 plus is a safe result for all, like the ones which.
I can't answer that. Like that's what I'm saying. Like it's a black box, right? It's like a huge complete package. I don't know how they make that decision. So I don't know.
It's also based on what kind of application they receive at that year.
Yeah, exactly.
So that you cannot tell.
Yeah. I mean, what I would say is, because I don't know, what I would say is, like, if you download this app called Yocket, I don't know if it's called something else.
It is the same.
So they have this data of what the average GPA is, what the average GRE and TOEFL is. But these are all like, you can enter your own score. So I don't know if you can trust those numbers, but they're something you can use as a reference.
You give them the input and they give you the output of what are the probable universities you can select.
Exactly.
That's what the Yocket does.
Yeah.
So, but not just Yocket has paid subscription now. It was free when you were applying.
Oh, okay.
Now it's paid. So, yeah, there are similar kinds of applications, but Yocket has popularity across the world. So.
But yeah, so once you've quantified, decided what university you want to go to, then your actual everything starts. I guess it's kind of too early to have a talk about this now, but your education loan, applying for visa, and then once everything is sorted, you need to look for a place to stay there. So all of that. But yeah, I wanted to focus more on the applications and the decisions more than anything else. I think that's all I had for today. But yeah, like I said, I wanted this to be more like a discussion. If you guys have any questions, particular.
So it's just like, to know about like how you rate or how you factorize these universities. Just like, what was the whole and sole criteria of you doing the MS? I mean, was just there you wanted to land up to get a greater job opportunities, or just that you had some other purpose of doing this and this?
So for me, it was a lot of things. Like career-wise and professionally speaking, it's a way for me to improve on my skill sets. And I felt like I wasn't happy with the kind of skill sets that I had with whatever training I received in my undergrad and my internships. That was one part of it. So skill set development, working on research, these were all experiences that I wanted to have under my belt going forward. While I do want to get in the industry, and that was my plan from the get-go, I still wanted to have this kind of technical skill sets. The second factor is the money. So this is again, these numbers that I'm going to say now is purely like from my experience and me talking to others. So my thinking was, for me to go from a 5 LPA to a 25 LPA job here in Bangalore, I estimated it would take me around 10 years. And this is a figure that I concluded based on talking to people. While obviously some people can grow faster, some people can grow slower. This was like the average that I estimated. So the second reason for me doing masters was a way for me to reduce this time frame from 10 years to 5 years. So I thought if I did masters for 2 years, then had a work experience of about 2 years there, when I come back here to India, I thought I would be earning around the same. So it was essentially reducing that time for me to earn approximately 25 lakhs from 10 years to 5 years. That was the second reason why I wanted to go. The third reason why was I usually always want to kind of step out of my comfort zone, and I want to be able to experience a lot of things. So being in another country and experiencing that part of it, living independently, was also some things that I wanted to do. So if I were to like put a number, I would say I think the technical skill development and me being able to do research was, I would say, I think 40% of the decision, and I'd say 40%. And then I would say me, the money side of it, what I would say around 30 to 40%. And the rest of it, I think, is just the experience, and I wanted to be able to have that.
Do you highly recommend masters in abroad or
No, I don't highly recommend. I don't recommend anything. It's up to you guys, right? Do whatever you guys want to do in life. Don't.
No, meaning, is it a good decision to go out, stepping out of the comfort zone and trying something like getting a master's to improve your skills? What do you feel?
Stepping out of your comfort zone, I would personally recommend it. But again, doing masters, I don't recommend it to anybody, right? It's all up to you. Like I would never say you have to do it if you want to succeed. You don't have to do it. You can succeed anywhere. You can do well for yourself even if you start work here. So it's really up to you. That's what I would say. I wouldn't recommend doing masters, or I wouldn't recommend no recommendations. Live your life. Do whatever you want.
It's just you wanted to do it, so you took it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's all.
Did your master help in skill development?
Definitely. I think, like I said, first year there's so much things you have to do, and networking is also a part of it. And there's things that I constantly try to improve on is being able to communicate properly and being able to develop network, maintain that professionalism with people. I feel like these are things that you kind of pick out when you are put into that kind of environment. So I think definitely it helped and is continuing to develop my interpersonal skills.
So it's better than doing self-study, or if you want to just study, okay, you don't want to study for money. So if it's better to study self or do a master's, then.
What do you mean by that?
If I want to enhance my skill,
Okay.
and do if I want to learn a lot, okay. So if I want to explore a lot, so doing masters is okay, or it's a waste of time, or self-studies will be good.
It kind of depends. Like if you want to pick up on a programming language, for example, you don't need a master's degree to do that. But I think, so, I mean, again, I can only answer that question from my experience. And I can't answer it any other way, because for some people it might have been beneficial, some people it might not have been. From my experience, what I get back from masters, one important skill that I've acquired is the ability to become an expert in any subject matter. Because a lot of these courses that you do and the research work that you are involved in requires you to read a lot of research papers. So you are aware of all the state-of-the-art technology across the industry in whatever courses that you are taking. And these courses are curated in such a way that you not only learn new technologies, but you also apply it. You do projects, you do your assignments are curated to be more practical. So I'd say the major skill set is you stepping out of the after masters. Even if you don't have like a proper vertical technical skill development, you'll definitely have some skill sets which are going to be helpful for you in the industry or wherever you want to go. Does that answer the question? Somewhat.
It's very much into building projects. So
I see. Yeah, I mean that's the only way I could answer.
Yeah, he's still in first semester and he's built a lot of projects. So hence he's still in a prenatal stage
Yeah.
to know more about.
You should talk to more people. I think I'm sample size 1, but more people you talk to people that didn't do masters that have a good career, talk to people that did masters that didn't have a good career, talk to people that don't have a good, like talk to as many people as you can, and then I think you can develop your own opinion about it. Because what I'm saying right now is my opinion. So if you want to have your opinion, just talk to people.
Since you said that you're from electrical and electronics, and
Yeah.
we know that we have like lot of domains, like we
Yes.
have analog, digital, or many things we do have. So how did you figure out that this is the one that I have to pick it up? And like we know that we have other than our course like data analyst or AI engineer or something like that. So how did you preferably choose that this is the one that I can go ahead with my master's? So
I didn't. Actually, that's why I kind of chose electrical and computer engineering, because it was broad. I was not in a position to say I want to be an expert in X, Y, Z. Like I wasn't in a position to make that decision. So electrical, it happened that it was quite broad. So I was able to pick and choose courses from different of these areas for me to get an idea of what it's like. And I mean, I would say even I still haven't figured it out now. Now I'm more focused towards my research interest, which is more biomedical imaging, but that's only because I've been working on it. Maybe there's another field for me that I might have more interest in, I don't know. So, yeah.
What are the job opportunities if I enroll for a PhD program instead of others?
So, PhD, I think, opens up more doors than a master's program would. And the reason why I say that is, even at Intel, while most of the companies focused on the clients and the customers and building products for the customers, there is a small wing of Intel which is curated for research, technological research. They don't care about customers. They focused on improving or working on the latest technology. And to get into that, they require somebody with a PhD. And the reason for that being, if you have a PhD, it's like a testament that you're able to work on one thing for like a period of time and you're able to do that independently. And it's similar for most of these big companies. They have a research wing. While they might not need PhD as a requirement, it would definitely be preferred. That is if you want to get into the industry. But if you want to get into the academia, then you need a PhD.
One question.
Yeah.
You applied for 2 courses.
Yes.
So, for someone who wants to get in as early as possible, would you recommend them to apply right after engineering, but with a not such a great profile, or spend time here, like work for 1 year and make a better profile and apply for the one after that?
So again, I can't answer that, but because it's like, again, I don't know, right? But for me personally, I think I am definitely grateful that I worked here for a year, because I think being in the industry, you learn things that you would not be aware of if you're a student, and then you develop this kind of mentality. You know how the world works essentially. I feel like when I was doing my engineering, it was so like one after another, schooling, then second, 11th and 12th, then engineering, that you're in that kind of student mentality, and it's very difficult to know how the industry works or how the world works. And I feel like having that kind of work experience definitely helps. And if your work experience improves your technical skills, then yeah. But from a point of applications, do you need to work? No. Is it going to help? Probably, yeah. I think for like internships and job applications, I think work experience is definitely going to help. They would want to hire somebody that has worked previously. Oh, that's not a requirement.
And what if we haven't worked in the domain which we are applying for masters? Like I'm an electronic student and I worked on for some developing company. Will that be helpful or
So it won't hamper your hinder your application for sure. If it might not add too much value to your application, technically speaking, but it's not going to hinder it. And I feel like with universities, if you have done the same undergrad, then it's not going to be too much of a problem for you to get into that master's. But if you have done something else altogether, if you have done electrical but you want to get into computer science, it's going to be a challenge.
What are the other courses which a EEE student can opt?
Courses in sense, as in
Like how is embedded systems?
yeah, that was kind of one of my interests. So, like I said, I mean, embedded systems again is one of the verticals in electrical engineering. It depends. At UC Davis, there's some really good research work that happens in embedded systems. There's a professor that's building a really neat product that can do blood oxygen monitoring for fetus. So they're building a product that can sit on the womb of a mother. So there are a lot of projects that happens. I did a course on embedded systems, although the course I didn't learn too much from it. It was more project oriented. But yeah, that's also one stream that's within electrical umbrella of electrical.
Yeah, like that. What all streams do we have?
So there's analog, digital, embedded systems. Embedded systems kind of comes under computer engineering.
Recommend a website for them so that they can look up and do their work. Because
Do you
when
know?
you just say
I mean, I know UC Davis website.
this Peterson's website, which elaborates on what exactly they offer at the university and especially for that program. But yes, you have to get into the website and know more about what kind of modules are covered, what kind of topics are covered under that particular program in that university. So it's a lot of self-studying and doing your own research. But yeah, Peterson's website is a big guide and it's for the beginners, which can give you a little information on how to start with.
What would you comment on VLSI thing? Because they say it's kind of blooming and all. So what's your point on VLSI?
I don't know. I think VLSI, I don't know actually. The industry trends, I don't know. I know a couple of my friends at UC Davis are in the VLSI domain, but industry point of view, I don't know much. I do know that there's going to be a huge push for foundry and chip manufacturing now across the world because people want to move away from China and
Products in China.
yeah, and Taiwan actually.
Yeah.
But the biggest industry is really scared that China might invade Taiwan, and if they do, the entire chip industry is gonna be dominated by China. So industries are kind of worried. So now there's a push. Even in India, they're setting up. I think there's one
in North.
Nanjangud here in Mysore. There's one.
Yeah.
So foundry is a big thing, and I would assume with that kind of a push worldwide, I think that industry is also going to be green.
Job opportunities for them?
Okay, so job opportunities, it was pretty bad for me. I think when I decided to go, my impression was that since I'm in California, I'm near Silicon Valley, and then I thought there would be more job opportunities and I could get a job, but that actually I was proved wrong. So for my internships, I applied to 150 applications, which was about 80 companies, because I applied to two or more applications per company, and I got one interview call, and I didn't get it. And the internship I got at Intel was through a networking event, where there's a lot of luck involved, right? You have to meet the right person at the right time, and that was pretty bad. Internships was pretty bad. Lots of my friends at UC Davis did not get internships, even though their profiles are exceptional. They're one of the smartest, and they were still unable to get it. And my conclusion was, I think they preferred US citizens over internationals. I think
Also the current situation.
current situation now is going to be a problem But when I applied for internships, the decision was not in the picture. So back then only it was quite difficult. And again, it's not impossible to get. There are lots of opportunities, but there's a lot of luck element involved in getting it. US jobs usually lot works on referrals and networking event. Like even the internship I got, for example, I never applied to it previously. I just happened to meet my manager, had an interview, I got the job, and then I applied to it from a formality point of view. And I'm sure there would have been other applicants that would have applied to the same job posting, but their application would not have been looked at. So a lot of it is dependent on luck and networking. So that's why I even mentioned earlier that you guys really need to like start working on your networking skills, because it's going to be super important.
And in India especially, I have recommended students to download the Meetup app and follow it up, and also several job fairs to attend. And that has been a big hit. And also Discord app, and what is the high tech something? Is anyone aware of that? Okay, I forgot. It's something to do with high. What is it? Okay. So several such apps have been easy for students to find internship opportunities here in India. And the meetups, yes, the offline meetups has helped people secure internship. I have Harish as an example, Arjun as an example, and Pradeep, who's still in second year, as an example. So people did secure internship by networking. Having the prerequisite skills or the experience.
How do you get your internships at IISc? At what stage
I
did you
emailed
think?
professors.
Okay.
And then the thing was like most of them ignored it. And then just one happened to be like, okay, let's meet. And then we met, and then he was like, so the internship was curated to my interest. He was like, at that point I was really into digital signal processing. He was like, what do you want to do? What are you interested in? So I said, this is what my interests are. And then I was like, okay, so I have this project and I feel like you can work on it. So I did that one internship there, and we published a paper from that. And then I had a really good relationship with him. And then in my final year, I was looking for final projects, I was looking for things to do. And then at the same time, he also emailed me saying there was like a project that he needed some help with. So I got my team on board, and all of us worked out of IISc. That was on like a fuel cell related project.
Yeah, like does the name of IISc matter a lot, or does your project depend again?
You're working on a similar project outside the IISc, which is
I think name
equally
matters,
phenomenal.
because I think ultimately, like if you can get like a letter of recommendation from somebody that's reputed, that has a good like H index or has a lot of publications, because academic LORs are preferred, it's gonna be helpful. But again, like that's my assumption was that IISc name was gonna get like compensate for that 8.22 CGPA, which was not true. So in my first cycle, in my first cycle it didn't matter. Looks like I don't know if it mattered in my second. I did get my one LOR from my professor there, so I don't know.
There are multiple labs in IISc, so you went out to each of the labs, saw which
Yeah.
professors working on the board,
Yeah.
and then implemented them.
Yeah,
How did you approach them? What kind of cold emails did you write them?
I don't remember. But I think during my undergrad, I must have sent like thousands of cold emails. No response from most people. But you have nothing to do, right? You draft one email, send it
No,
to
but we
people.
also discussed once of this exercise of students knowing how to approach a professor. So I wanted
Here
you
or in masters?
any place. So I just wanted you to talk about that, because I remember me and you discussing about it offline. So.
Okay. I don't know actually, because there in US when you're doing masters, I think you need to approach. So if you're approaching a professor and you first ask them, do you have funding opportunities? They're not even going to look at your email. But if you have a relevant interest and you look up the kind of work that they have done, you read their papers and see what they have done, and then you email them saying, hey, I saw that you published this paper last year, and I saw the work that you did, and I thought it was super interesting. Don't use those words.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really interesting, and even I am aligned my research towards that. This is what I did previously to work on something similar. I feel like, can we like schedule a time to talk about it? So best thing for you is if you can get to meet them. That would be the best, because then if you have a conversation with them, either Zoom or face to face or whatever, and then you will know if there's a research interest match or not. So also, even if they are willing to like take you, but you are not interested, you will still know, right, if it's a good match or not. So I'd say definitely do your research about the professor before you reach out to them. Don't send a generic email. Don't be like, I'm looking to work on research projects. Can I work with you? They're gonna ignore it. But if you do some research, read the papers they have published, look at what projects they have got going on right now, and then you email them about that, then there's a higher chance of them replying to you or talking to you. Now as an undergrad reaching out to other university professors like ISC, it's a shot in the dark. But again, you have nothing to lose. If it hits, it hits.
Would you recommend the same for university outside India?
So no, I would not say don't shoot in the dark when you're doing masters there, because if you're doing masters in your department, there's going to be like 20-30 professors, right? You don't want to send like irritate all of them. But if you do your background research about them, you already will have an idea of like you'll have like 5 to 10 professors that are doing relevant things. So it's not going to be a shot in the dark. Here in IISc, like websites are not updated. You don't know what work they're doing. They might be 10 years old. So that becomes a little shot in the dark, because you don't know if they even check their emails. You don't know how they work, right? But if you're in your university, you know how systems are. You know how things work. You know how to approach them.
Just like you know how PMSIT functions. When you're already there, you would know how it works.
Exactly. Yeah.
Any other questions?
What was the duration of your internship which you did on IISc?
The first one was, it was like, first one was, there was no internship certificate or something. I did it, I think I started in November, and then it continued for like a few months. I used to bunk classes, tell my professors. My Triple E professors are so sweet. They're like, yeah, so
I
they
would
let
like
me
to
go.
cut it on the video.
But yeah, they were really supportive. I think they knew what I was doing. So I think the entire work for us to start and to get that paper out took like 3-4 months. But it wasn't like continuous, because I couldn't go every day. And the second internship I did with my final project, it was supposed to be like 6 months, but we started in January, and in March COVID hit, so it was like 3 months, and then everything got shut down.
So what are your suggestions for the undergrad students, and how can they improve their profile before they start applying to the masters? Not just having the 9 point or being the 9 pointer, but how exactly you can work on your profile. What are the exercises you can do here while being here at the undergrad studies?
I think, networking is definitely a big part. Student
What
leadership,
skill set?
So,
improving the skill set and what exercise they can
communication,
do. Yeah.
presentation skills. That IEEE student branch, I started that here, and that was really helpful for me. I gave that was like a playground for me, because it was like we had to set up a student leadership, and I've heard it's going strong now. So it worked. So it was like a playground for me to experiment different leadership things, and then I had the opportunity to conduct an Arduino workshop, a website development workshop, which I was able to use that to work on my presentation skills and organizing your college fests here. I feel like all of those extracurricular things, interpersonal skills, don't take it for granted, because I feel like even so many times in your interviews, interpersonal skills sometimes matter more than your technical skills.
Do they matter when you apply to the universities? Do they matter when you put it on the applications, like on your SOPs or on your LORs?
So for UC Davis, I had to submit 2 essays. One was statement of purpose, and another was personal history statement. So the way I structured it was, my statement of purpose, I kept it more professional and speaking about my professional and career things. And
that is more technical.
More
so the statement
technical.
of purpose is completely technical, and you don't have to include a lot of interpersonal skills or what you did in the basketball games and not all that. So SOP is mainly is there to make you look very geeky.
Yeah, and in personal history, I included all the clubs I was a part of here, some leadership organizations I was a part of outside of the MSIT, all the volunteering things and things like that. So that's how I structured. I feel like it all matters. At the end of the day, even if not for your application, for your personal development at the end of the day, right? You don't want to be just streamlined. You want to be able to have those kinds of skill sets which will open a lot of doors.
So I suggest students to participate in as many competitions as possible while they're in the campus.
Yeah.
And especially PBL helps and hackathons help when they're in campus, and also go ahead and apply for as many competitions as possible outside the campus. That will give a lot of perspective technically for you, and then that's where you network a lot and then learn more out of the campus. That is something what I've seen over the years, and I guess everyone should explore at that end. And yes, technically being skillful is very important. That's something we said.
In that 10 minutes, we just had a really good conversation. And that led.
So you did 2 internships before that.
You're talking about in...
No. In India.
Oh, in India?
Yeah.
What was the question again?
Like you went for off-campus placement.
Oh, yeah.
So did you email them or how do you?
No. So I got on to Internship. So in my final semester, I got on to Internship. I did 3, apart from that IISc internship. The IISc internship was from Jan to March. So by March, I had started receiving all rejections from universities. So at that point, I was like, oh, I don't have like placements and I kind of need to figure things out. So and then I started applying on Internship after March. I did 2 internships with like manufacturing companies. They needed some help. It was like more like a consultancy thing. They needed some help with like setting up Internet of Things in their manufacturing thing. And I built like a proof of concept for them. So I did 1 internship was through that, some manufacturing company in Haryana. And then that managing director, he liked what I did. So he referred me to his friend who had another manufacturing company there. So I did another like internship there. And then the 3rd internship I did was at the startup that I continued to work on. I interned there for like 3 months, I think, until like September or something, and then I started working full time.
So
it was through internship. All
internship.
Yeah.
You also came and knocked at our door and asked if we offer internship at higher education. Said if you remember, I don't mind. I want to, because I've gained enough knowledge at applying for the universities at higher education. Can I intern? But there was no scope, so and he had better things to do, so which would improve his profile eventually. So I hope you remember that. I'll go back to the story later. I guess we'll wind it up. Thank you for being here today and answering everyone's questions. It's a very much valuable session, and I guess it will reach out to more people when we put it up on YouTube. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time even after coming to Bangalore and traveling all the way back and forth and visiting our campus and instructing more students. I feel there should have been more students who could benefit out of it, hence the video shoot. So thanks a lot, and I wish you good luck.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It was my pleasure.